Now that the spring update has been released in the test realm, and 5th Age is upon us, I thought it'd be appropriate to make a video talking about all of the more advanced systems that have been added to PvP within the past couple of years. And my hope in making this tutorial of sorts is that I'll be able to help new and returning players understand, appreciate, and love PvP as much as I do. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So one of the first things you'll notice as you're watching this match is that there are certain turns where I can't pick my cards. And that's because KingsIsle introduced the turn-based combat system to both practice and ranked PvP. So if you're familiar with turn-based tournaments, it's basically the same thing where each of you take turns picking your cards, and really what it does is eliminates first turn advantage. Basically where if you're first, you do something to your opponent and they don't have an opportunity to react. It just takes effect on their immediate spells. First turn advantage became a really big issue, and KingsIsle knows this. It's still a big issue in some of the tournament modes where it still exists. I'm hoping that at some point in the future, because of this, especially in quick match PvP, that KingsIsle will make it turn-based so that it eliminates that massive advantage that first turn has. Another thing you might notice is this little timer up in the corner, and that is what the developers call a chess timer. It basically helps to make play not as slow and to discourage longer matches. Each opponent gets 5 minutes on their timer, and when their timer runs out, the game ends. Until this spring update, the timer worked so that if you ran out of time, you lost the match. Now how it works is that if one opponent runs out of time, the match counts as a draw and both opponents lose rank. But essentially how the chess timer works is that you get 5 minutes on your clock, and it's not a straight 5 minutes. That 5 minutes only goes towards the time that you take to pick your cards. It takes always a minimum of 5 seconds off of your timer, even if you pick like really quickly or if you pass. It's kind of to discourage like mass passing. So it always takes a minimum of 5 seconds off your turn. But really, instead of getting like just 5 minutes in the match, you're really getting, I think, like 30 minutes essentially, max, kind of around there. Something you'll become familiar with as you quest through the game is Sunspell enchants, because they significantly increase the power of your spells. The most powerful one is this one, Epic. It increases the damage of your spell automatically by 300. It adds 300 damage to the base damage of your spell. KingsIsle essentially wanted to, while of course discouraging longer play, kind of still slow down the tempo of the matches and mitigate some of the damage we were doing, because damage was ridiculously high. So they actually ended up banning these spells like Epic and Colossal and Gargantuan, all those damage enchants from PvP. You can still use them in PvE, in questing, but you cannot use them in player versus player matches. Instead, what they did was introduce the spell Solar Surge. Now Solar Surge, how this works is that you enchant damage spells just like any other sun enchant. But what it does is it actually scales depending on the pip cost of the spell that you're enchanting. So if you have 1 pip, it adds 50 damage to the spell. 2 pips, 100 damage, etc., etc., up to 6 pips, which is 300 damage, and that's the maximum. So if you have a 9 pip spell and you're enchanting that, it's still only going to do 300 maximum damage increase, which of course is still great. One of the biggest issues, of course, and one of the biggest pieces of feedback they got from this was that they locked it behind veteran rank. I am currently not veteran rank, so I can't train it myself, but it does add a lot of advantage to PvP, to your strategy, because the spells that you're doing are insanely high damage with this spell added to them. The last thing, but certainly not least, is a new thing that the developers introduced to the game just in this last fall update, and that is Roshambo. Roshambo is probably one of the most complicated systems they've ever added to the game, but it's simple once you understand it, and hopefully the way I explain it will make sense. Essentially, Roshambo just means rock, paper, scissors. That's it. So it's not that complicated, but what it means for this game is that it refers to the way that certain schools relate to other schools. If you're familiar with Wizard101, you would know that the Storm School counteracts the Myth School, and vice versa. The Life School counteracts Death School, vice versa. And Ice counteracts Fire, and vice versa. So there used to be like this idea of opposing schools. But now KingsIsle is kind of introducing a new method where one school counteracts another, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the school that it counteracts that school. It just kind of goes in like a circle, like rock, paper, scissors, Roshambo. And I'll kind of put like a little map up on the screen to demonstrate that. In addition to the Roshambo element, the developers wanted to give us a way to take advantage of it, so they added new spells that give us more counter power to the weaker school. So each school gets 4 Roshambo spells. And basically what these spells are is that they take hanging effects and convert them to something else to either weaken your opponent or make yourself stronger. The spells are only available for PvP, which was actually kind of some negative feedback KingsIsle got. People wanted to know why the developers didn't make them for PvE. There are various reasons, and you can probably imagine why you wouldn't want that element in PvE. But essentially, they are just for PvP, and for good reasons. These Roshambo spells also help set up for a Gambit, which is a damage spell that when certain conditions are met, it does twice the amount of damage that it normally would do. So for example, we have this spell, Thundering Djinn, which normally does 1115 damage, and it will do twice as much if there are 2 or more heal over times on you. So how do you get 2 or more heal over times? Well, you know, you could use the new version of Healing Current, which is now actually a heal over time spell. Or you could simply convert your opponent's heal over times into heal over times for yourself, which honestly would be just as fine. And that's basically what these Roshambo spells do, is they help to set up for different gambits. So you have the 9-pip gambits, the 7-pip gambits, and the 11-pip gambits. So there's a total of 3 gambits and 4 Roshambo spells for each school. Another example is with one of my favorite balance spells, Duststorm Djinn. The gambit on it requires that your opponent has 2 or more damage over time spells on them, or that you have 2 or more heal over time spells on you. The spell we have in the balance school that sets us up for Djinn is called Djinn's Fortune, which converts damage over times on you to heal over times on you, and heal over times on your opponent to damage over times on your opponent. It's kind of like a triage, but better in some ways. What's really cool about these new Roshambo spells is that you can actually use other school spells to set yourself up for your gambit. So often what I'll do is I'll use fire spells like Oni's Forge to remove the shields on my opponent and put heal over times on me. And that sets me up for a double damage Duststorm Djinn. Essentially, I could remove a whole elemental shield and do a Duststorm Djinn the next round, and it would do twice the amount of damage that it normally does. To encourage off-school play and use of other Roshambo spells besides your own school, the developers also added special mastery amulets with comparable stats to meta amulets, so we could use off-schooling, kind of bringing back the idea of mastery amulets. You can buy these mastery amulets by going to Brandon Mistborn outside of the arena in Unicorn Way. They're really cheap. They're about 500 tickets, so you could do a tourney and even just buy 2 if you wanted to. I'm not sure going to 5th Age where these mastery amulets will stand, but I'm certain we will see some element of mastery amulets when the update comes to Live Realm. So these are the main things that you really need to know to get started in PvP. I hope this tutorial helped. I also hope it helped encourage you to try out PvP for yourself. I know it's a lot of information, so I've actually split the video into sections so you can come back to it if you need it. Also, please let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions or need help with PvP in general. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more quality content in the future. That's it for now, and I'll see y'all in the next one.